The US has turned up the heat on Russia, dispatching a set of supersonic B-1B bombers right to the country's doorstep, in a move that will no doubt leave Russian President Vladimir Putin worrying about what might happen next. The B-1B, or to give it its full name, the Rockwell B-1B Lancer, is one of the greatest bomber planes ever created. Together with the B-2 Spirit and the B-52 Stratofortress, it forms one powerful prong of the trident of strategic bombers used by the US Air Force and has notably been deployed in the likes of Iraq and Syria in the past. It was initially envisioned way back in the 1960s, with the Air Force hoping to create a plane that combined the supersonic speeds of the B-58 Hustler with the huge destructive payload potential of the B-52. However, their original plans proved to be a little too ambitious, and the program was cancelled in the late 1970s due to high costs, among other factors. Work on the B-1 started a few years later, in 1981, and the design was optimized, with production beginning in 1983 and B-1Bs entering service with Strategic Air Command in 1986. In total, 100 were made, and close to half of them are still active and operational with the US Air Force, while retired units sit in the so-called Boneyard, the vast US Air Force aircraft and missile storage facility in Tucson, Arizona. Here's what makes the B-1B so special. First, it's fast, lightning fast. The B-1B is the only current American bomber able to reach supersonic speeds, breaking the sound barrier and soaring through the skies at Mach 1.2 or more than 900 miles per hour when traveling at high altitude. Even at low altitudes, it's remarkably rapid, achieving a peak speed of Mach 0.92 or just over 700 miles per hour. In comparison, the B-2 Spirit, which is another of the world's leading bombers, can only reach top speeds of 628 miles per hour. The tremendous speed of the B-1B allows it to quickly penetrate enemy airspace, evading air defenses and delivering payloads with ease and efficiency, before safely retreating from the area before the enemy even has time to understand what happened. It's an amazingly agile aircraft too, thanks to its variable geometry wings, which can be repositioned and optimized accordingly to suit different situations and mission conditions. Forward wing settings are used for rapid takeoffs and landings, for example, as well as certain high-altitude situations, while aft wing sweep settings are used for spells of supersonic and high subsonic flight, granting the B-1B impressive maneuverability in both low and high-altitude environments. The B-1B also holds the distinction of being able to carry the largest payload of both guided and unguided munitions in the entire Air Force inventory. It can carry a staggering 75,000 pounds in total, with a capacity of up to 24 cruise missiles. The B-52, meanwhile, has a maximum payload of 70,000 pounds, while the B-2 Spirit can carry up to 40,000 pounds. A single B-1B can therefore carry almost twice as much weight as a B-2 bomber, and B-1Bs can easily be equipped with a vast array of munitions. Examples include 500-pound Mark 82 or 2,000-pound Mark 84 general-purpose bombs, 500-pound Mark 62 quick-strike naval mines, cluster munitions, 2,000-pound GBU-31 joint direct attack munitions, and GBU-54 laser joint direct attack munitions. It's the only US Air Force bomber capable of carrying long-range anti-ship missiles, and could be upgraded in the future to deploy hypersonic AGM-183 and other advanced emerging weapons. This all makes the B-1B one of the most versatile elements in the Air Force arsenal. No matter the mission, no matter the conditions, it's ready for anything. What's more, despite having history dating back several decades, the B-1B remains one of the most modern and sophisticated strategic bombers in existence today, fitted out with advanced aperture radar technology, navigation systems, and electronic countermeasures to help it survive in difficult and dangerous circumstances. Its synthetic aperture radar helps it track, identify, and engage an array of targets, including moving vehicles. Plus, the B-1B boasts a fully integrated data link (FIDL) system for maximum battlefield situation awareness. It can rapidly send and receive data to other units, command posts, or the Combined Air Operations Center to target and strike new targets as and when they emerge without any delay. Meanwhile, its mixture of global positioning system (GPS) and inertial navigation systems ensure that it can always find its way out of any situation without having to rely on ground-based navigation aids or constant radio communications. As far as defensive measures go, the B-1B boasts electronic jamming equipment combined with a radar warning receiver to let the crew know if they're at risk of being detected. It also comes equipped with both chaff and flare expendable countermeasures to disrupt incoming interceptors, plus a tow decoy system. These features, combined with its supersonic flight capabilities, superior maneuverability, and low radar cross-section, make it one of the most survivable strategic bombers ever devised. Even in the most hostile of settings, the B-1B can get in and out undetected and unharmed more often than not, dealing devastating damage along the way. And none of this is theoretical, it's based on real-world experience, as the B-1B has flown over 12,000 sorties since 2001 alone in skies over Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan and Libya. It has a long and distinguished track record of success, making it a fearsome and formidable force for any military anywhere in the world to encounter. In summary, the B-1B is a veritable beast of the skies, and several of these bombers have flown to Norway, just a short distance from Russia's borders. While the Air Force has not announced how many B-1Bs have been positioned there, photos have captured at least 3 of them being escorted by Spanish FA-18M Hornets en route to Åland Air Station, the main F-35 stealth fighter base in Norway. The Hornets in question come from the Keflavik Air Base in Iceland. This isn't the first time we've seen B-1Bs in Norway. They were first deployed to the Scandinavian nation back in March 2021 with the aim of conducting exercises to gain experience in carrying out missions in Arctic conditions. Prior to that point, US bombers in Europe mainly stationed themselves in the UK, which has a milder climate. B-1Bs were also seen over Scandinavia in 2023, a year after Russia's invasion of Ukraine began. They took part in the joint military exercise Arctic Challenge 2023. The largest Nordic military exercise, Arctic Challenge 2023, was aimed at advancing Arctic security initiatives and strengthening interoperability across the High North region. The bombers have also been seen in other nations around the world, including Japan, South Korea, Turkey and Australia. They regularly cover great distances, flying into friendly airspace for missions and training exercises with America's many allies. Just before making the near 5,000-mile trip across the Atlantic, B-1B crews were taking part in the Flag 25-3 training exercise, which involved daily sorties from the bomber's home at Dyess Air Force Base in Texas to the Nevada Test and Training Range, carrying out simulated strike missions in a contested airspace. They're likely to carry out similar exercises in their new Norwegian homeland, with a US Air Forces in Europe press release explaining. US Air Force B-1B Lancer aircraft deployed from Dyess Air Force Base, Texas, and arrived at Åland Air Force Base, Norway on August 9, 2025, to begin Ally-led training operations as part of the latest Bomber Task Force Europe. The deployment empowers US Air Force aircrews to refine tactics, increase flexibility, and strengthen coordination with allies by exercising and operating together, increasing warfighting capabilities and readiness. While in theater, the bomber aircrews will conduct a series of Allied-led training missions in complex, high-threat airspace. Aircrews will train on key elements of the find, fix, track, and target process, honing the speed and accuracy with which bombers and fighters are able to act against threats in real time. As aircrews practice these skills, they simultaneously train against ground and air-based threats designed to deny their freedom to maneuver, requiring them to act decisively to counter threats and gain air superiority. While the press release gave no direct mention of Russia, it's been heavily implied by officials and suggested by analysts that this movement of bombers is also a way for the US and NATO to demonstrate strength and send a message to the Kremlin. Lieutenant Colonel Eric Alvarez, deployed commander of the 345th Bomb Squadron, stated, "This deployment allows us to train the way we fight, integrated with our NATO allies, ready and adaptive. It's about building experience and trust together, enhancing readiness, and staying sharp in dynamic environments." Meanwhile, a Facebook post from the official US Air Forces in Europe and Air Forces Africa account stated, "Today's mission isn't just about bombers. It's about standing side by side with our allies and partners, showing that when we move together, we stay strong. Bomber Task Force is about teamwork, trust, and sustaining preparedness, delivering peace through strength with unwavering combat capability." There's no doubt that Vladimir Putin will be fully aware of the B-1Bs in the area. He'll also know exactly what those bombers are capable of and how much damage they could do to his nation's military and infrastructure, as well as his own legacy, should the US ever make the massive decision to launch an attack on Russian soil. With their enormous payloads and unmatched capacities, the B-1Bs could easily cross the Russian border, strike high-value targets, and leave the Kremlin in chaos. For now, it's highly unlikely that such an event would occur unless Russia makes the call to invade a NATO nation. At that point, thanks to Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, all bets would essentially be off. NATO allies would have the right and the duty to protect their fellow members, and the US could take that opportunity to launch a devastating strike in the heart of Russia itself. This is a prospect that numerous NATO officials and European leaders have warned about. General Carsten Breuer, for example, Inspector General of the Bundeswehr, which is the highest-ranking military position in the German army, has gone on record stating that Russia could launch an attack on a NATO nation, most likely one of the Baltic states, by 2029. Speaking to the BBC, General Breuer said, "There's an intent and there's a build-up of the stocks for possible future attacks on NATO's Baltic members. This is what the analysts are assessing in 2029, so we have to be ready by 2029. If you ask me now, is there a guarantee that's not earlier than 2029? I would say no, it's not. So we must be able to fight tonight." Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has reinforced this prospect. Speaking with Sky News, he stated, "We believe that starting from 2030, Putin can have significantly greater capabilities. Today, Ukraine is holding him up. He has no time to drill the army." Zelensky went on to say that in 10 years' time or less, Putin could easily amass an entirely new army, replacing the many soldiers lost in Ukraine and becoming fully capable of a serious strike on NATO nations. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has made similar claims, warning that even if the war in Ukraine comes to a close, the threat of Russia will not simply go away overnight. Speaking at an event at Chatham House in the UK, Rutte said, "In terms of ammunition, Russia produces in 3 months what the whole of NATO produces in a year, and its defense industrial base is expected to roll out 1,500 tanks, 3,000 armored vehicles, and 200 Iskander missiles this year alone. Russia could be ready to use military force against NATO within 5 years. Rutte continued, "Let's not kid ourselves, we're all on the eastern flank now. The new generation of Russian missiles travel at many times the speed of sound. The distance between European capitals is only a matter of minutes. There is no longer east or west, there is just NATO." And when it comes to NATO, while various alliance members are making important steps to up their defense spending and modernize their militaries, there's no doubt that the US is by far the strongest military force and the biggest deterrent to any enemies considering an attack against the alliance. It has the strongest land, air, and sea forces in the world, the most advanced military equipment, the best technology, the biggest budget, and the best track record. No other country comes close to the United States in terms of military strength, and the B-1B bombers are the perfect symbol of what the US is all about. Agile, versatile, resilient, and powerful, they epitomize the American military's might and mastery of all forms of combat. While questions have been asked about the US's commitment to the NATO alliance and support for its European alliance in the past, actions like this, positioning some of the world's best bombers a mere 750 miles from Russia's border, prove that the world's mightiest military will not simply stand by while its friends come under fire, and that it's fully committed to preparing and maintaining a combat-ready, fully capable force that can take on Russia in the Nordic nations or the Baltics should the need ever arise. The timing of the B-1B movements is also noteworthy. The bombers arrived mere days before big talks between the US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, most likely as a pressure tactic to show Putin that the US is not playing around. The B-1Bs also came to Norway around a month before Russia and its main ally, Belarus, begin their Zapad 2025 or West 2025 military exercises. With thousands of troops expected to take part from Moscow and Minsk, the Zapad exercises have been held on and off since the 1970s and have the main aims of demonstrating Russia's military capabilities, training its troops, testing new equipment, and preparing the forces of both Russia and Belarus for a possible conflict with NATO. Zapad exercises have also been seen as a form of political messaging, a way for Russia to show off its armor, weaponry, and latest military hardware, projecting power and influence across the region, intimidating neighboring nations, and putting pressure on the NATO alliance. But the US has repeatedly shown in its actions that NATO will not be pressured or intimidated, and with the Kremlin's failures in Ukraine clear for all to see, the world is understandably less frightened of Russia than it once was. Despite entering Ukraine with one of the world's strongest armies on paper, going up against a much smaller and far less prepared nation, Russia has toiled and struggled with very limited success to show for its many sacrifices. It's lost countless men, thousands of tanks, huge numbers of radars, armored vehicles, artillery, aircraft, and other pieces of valuable military hardware. It's conducted one of the most wasteful and incompetent invasions in history, trading countless lives and billions of dollars worth of equipment for simple slivers of muddy land and tiny settlements. It's seen its economy crumble under the weight of record-level defense investment and numerous waves of sanctions imposed by nations around the world. And its reputation as one of the world's most intelligent, advanced, and powerful military forces has been dramatically called into question, leaving Russia and Putin, in many ways, in a weaker position now than they have ever been. In spite of all this, Russia remains a force that has to be taken seriously due to the ruthlessness of its leadership, its burgeoning relationship with China, and the fact that, for all of its military failures and weaknesses, it still possesses the world's largest stock of nuclear warheads, with around 5,500 in total. It's because of this that the US and NATO need to keep up the pressure. They have to continue to build their defenses, grow their militaries, and take the necessary steps to show Russia that they're ready to fight back. They must form the biggest possible deterrent to any prospective invasion, repeatedly demonstrating their capabilities and willingness to react, and respond with the same sort of ruthlessness that Russia has shown in recent years. That's why the seemingly simple act of flying a few B-1B bombers over the Atlantic Ocean to train in Norway is so much more important than it may appear at first glance. Just as the Air Force's Facebook post says, it's about building trust and showing unity among allies and partners, proving that NATO is stronger through the sum of its parts than Putin's Russia can ever hope to be, and preserving peace through strength. As such, we're likely to see continued movements of key US military assets across the Atlantic and towards the Russian border in the weeks and months ahead, as America and its allies will want to keep on reminding Russia of what it would have to deal with if it ever made the incredibly risky and game-changing decision to extend its invasion beyond the borders of Ukraine and into nations like Poland, Estonia, Latvia, or Finland. And every time America sends even a little piece of its power into the area, Putin will be watching, listening, and becoming increasingly wary, knowing that whatever he does and however many rubles he pours into his country's defenses, he'll never have a force that can match that of the US and NATO. You can learn more about what would be likely to happen if war between Russia and NATO ever broke out in our hour-by-hour breakdown of a prospective conflict. Or to see how NATO's strength compares not just to Russia, but the larger BRICS alliance, take a look at our NATO versus BRICS military power showdown. Be sure to subscribe to our trusted channel too, so you can stay informed and up to date on all goings-on from the Russia-Ukraine war and other important geopolitical conflicts across the globe. Thank you as always for watching.